Hello again, and welcome to another of Mosaic's coffee breaks. Mosaic is, of course, a collaboration of the organisations shown at the front of this presentation, and that collaboration focuses very much on the ownership issues associated with mid-market law firms. And when we say ownership, we mean everything associated with ownership, mergers and acquisitions, partnership structures, succession planning, partner exits, and everything associated with all of those issues. I hope you enjoy this broadcast. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the latest round of Mosaic coffee breaks. This morning, we're joined by Sally Dunscombe from Recovery First, who's going to spend a bit of time telling us about herself and how Recovery First have actually added their direction of travel in terms of additional facilities that they're providing. Let me start off by Sally. Welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself first, and then tell us a bit about Recovery First.
Okay, so I'm Sally Dunscombe, and I have spent most of my career in the legal services and the insurance markets, and the culmination of various years of experience in those arenas, including insolvency, led to the formation of Recovery First back in 2010 with my business colleague, David Johnston, who also comes from the background of accounting and providing services into the legal sector. All the planets aligned back in 2010 when we were looking at some challenging situations for funders who were supplying funds to law firms, and they had concerns over how they were actually progressing the cases that they had funded. And out of the back of that, the concept of Recovery First came out.
And I think it's quite a unique approach, isn't it, Sally? Because not only do you identify funders who will buy books of personal injury work, or your panel would buy books of work, and then you would monitor and control the collections going forward. And I think that's what you still do, and that was what was the particularly innovative part of what you do.
Yes. So in a nutshell, what we do, and this is in essence the same regardless of the situation that has led the law firm to be working with us, but we will take a live book of client files. We use the expertise of our panel firms. So depending on who has the right legal expertise to cover the types of cases that we're going to be handling and the capacity to be able to do them, we will draw a line in the sand for the donor firm at the point that those cases transfer, and we then ring fence their entitlement to their recoverable work in progress, their paid disbursements, their liabilities for deferred disbursements, and an entitlement to a proportion of the success fee. So we draw a line in the sand there, and then our panel firms will take those cases forward to a conclusion so that they're able then to bill out the totality of the legal work that's been done on those cases. So the original firm and the panel firm. And once those costs are recovered, and that's where Recovery First will become very active, we also operate a panel of cost lawyers to deal with drawing the bills, negotiating, agreeing the allocation between donor and panel firm. And then we recover those costs in. At that point, we then deal with the allocation, the processing of those payments. And then we return to the original firm 100% of their recovered work in progress, their success fee and their paid disbursements. And it's only at that point that we would charge a fee for our time and our involvement, which typically the fee back to the donor firm would be 15%. So if you had £100 worth of work in progress that was all recoverable, and we recovered £100 for you, we would then deduct our fee at that stage, but only when the cash is received, and pay back to the firm £85.
And I think historically, certainly when I've seen it, and Tom's seen it, you tend to enable the what you call the donor firm to realise far more than they would do if they made an outright sale
Yeah.
direct to a buyer.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, offers for purchasing work in progress can be as low as 20%, typically anywhere between 20 and 50.
Yeah.
You're lucky, depending on the type of work, 60%. We started life in the personal and injury space, mainly because at that point of time, a lot of firms were being impacted by the Jackson reforms and changes to the costs regime, and were being forced, due to cash flow predominantly issues, to look at divesting themselves of some of their portfolio, and in a lot of instances, it pushed them towards an insolvent situation. So we worked in the early days. We worked very much with insolvency practitioners. You'll probably know that an insolvency practitioner can't be appointed to a firm if there are live files still active within the firm. So that's where the relationship with us and the insolvency practitioner is key, because we take out all of those live files to allow them to then be subsequently appointed.
I think I'm right in saying, Sally, but please correct me if I'm wrong. I've been involved with yourself and David in a few places where you've done what I would describe as back-to-back deals, but by which I mean there might be I call it a main acquirer, if that makes sense. But that main acquirer, for whatever reason, isn't interested in a particular type of whip. And so you're able to kind of say, well, actually, our panel will have this bit, the main acquirer will have that bit. And so from the donor firm, to borrow your language, has found a home for 100% of its stuff. It just might be, well, a main acquirer. And then via your panel, it could be multiple acquirers, but sort of via you as one point of contact. Am I right in that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The model is the basic model is the same regardless of what we do, but it can be used in multiple situations. As I said originally, a lot of insolvency work was where we were focusing a lot of our time, but it works equally well in that scenario, Tom, where there is someone has found a firm that they'd like to acquire, but they just don't want that element of the work. So we can take that out either pre or post acquisition, and do exactly what I just described, realise that value of WIP and return the value to whoever is entitled to it. We also would use the model for retirements and closures, solvent closures of where people have just decided that's the time has come and they want to step out. Again, the model works in the same way, but it will enable somebody to recover higher value than were they just to say, okay, well, we're selling off, and law firms are, particularly the sort of smaller size firms, are less attractive in terms of a full out acquisition of the firm. As a lot of people that we've come across, particularly in the last few years, have not been able to find somebody to acquire their firm. They basically had banked on the sale of their firm being their retirement pension pot. So this gives them a way to at least recover the value of the work that they've got in there while they're going through that closure process.
We're seeing quite a lot of that with the smaller firms. If
Absolutely.
anything, they're having to actually pay firms to take them on and to take on their runoff cover.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's often also a factor as to somebody that's looking to close a firm, and they have they may well be in a solvent position, but when you then factor in those closure costs of runoff cover particularly, it pushes them over into that insolvent area. So we will work very closely with somebody that is planning a closure, so we can do it over a number of months, but also we will help them and their broker, with the benefit of our experience of having done a lot of these, in negotiating better terms for the runoff. Because if you think, well, they took their last PII policy out a year ago, at that point the firm looked like this. You roll that calendar forwards 12 months, including taking out all of the live files, transfer the liability for any issues on those files to another law firm's professional indemnity insurance. So there is a very different story to tell. So we can go back and demonstrate to the insurer that actually the risk that you took last year is very different now, and help negotiate down the runoff terms. I mean, that's no guarantee, because of course it is a contractual liability, but a lot of firms will realise, actually, if by pushing that runoff premium button, it's going to flip a firm from a solvent position into an insolvent position, why would they not come to the table and talk about it?
Sally, just just go back a little bit. You were talking about 20 to 50% recovery on files if sold in the marketplace. What's the typical percentage you find your clients are actually managing, or donor firms are managing to recover in your situation?
Well, assuming that the work in progress that has been recorded is genuine and has not been overstated, then we would ring fence 100% of that recoverable work in progress. So I think if you speak to a cost lawyer, they would typically say that you draw a bill, and if you get 70 to 75% of the bill, that's pretty good mean average. So whatever is recovered, they will get 100% of that, less our
less your 15%.
Yeah. And when we, going back those 10, 15 years now, since we started, we very much came into the personal injury, clinical negligence space, primarily because the concept came out of the work that both David and I were doing, and David was with a firm that were funding and insuring personal injury cases and clinical negligence matters. So it was driven really by the need of that funder to be able to recover their loans to firms that were operating in that space. So the concept came from that. But over the years, we've expanded out into all areas of legal work. There isn't any area now that we can't do. There are some that are more challenging than others. Legal aid brings its own challenges because of the need to be able to match not only the geographical area, but the areas of law that are covered under a certificate. So that's quite difficult. In the past, residential conveyancing has been hard to do, just the risk of transferring a file, but we have a model that does that. We don't deal with the costing quite the same way. So on residential conveyancing, we would agree a set percentage that goes back to the donor firm and to the panel firm, and it is weighted more towards the panel firm because they are the ones that are taking on quite a substantial risk by moving a conveyance that's partway through. And any insurer will tell you as well, the riskiest type of work to insure under your professional indemnity insurance is residential conveyancing. So that works slightly differently, but it is something that we can now do.
That's certainly where I think we've known you in the past for being in the insolvency space and being in the personal injury space. But I think that's a very good explanation of the fact that you've moved away from, well, you're still in that space, but you're very much extending into all forms of legal work, and not just insolvency. It's helping people to sell their firm, merge their firm, or help them with retirement.
Yeah, and restructuring as well, because as excuse me, as costs regimes change along the way, firms look at their strategy as that should they still continue in this arena? Is it better that they focus their resources on something that maybe is going to be more profitable for them?
Very much
So
so.
if they wanted to take an area of law out from their firm, again, we would look at working with them to say, okay, well, we no longer want to be working in the insolvency litigation space, maybe, and we want to focus on something else. Or if you have maybe you have a senior person who was working on a very specific type of work who leaves, and you have been unable to replace that expertise or decided not to replace that expertise, then we can take that area out as well.
Okay.
The only thing that we would say is what we're not here to do is pick up the rubbish that you don't want to do anymore.
No, I can see that.
And you
Okay, thank you, Sally. One final question in a few sentences. What's the typical size of the deals that you're doing?
There isn't one. Most people will know because of the press coverage that we did a very large project in Liverpool back in 2021 that had over 30,000 files in it. About 18 months ago, we took 24 files from a firm where a partner was retiring, and they were not going to replace that expertise. So the process is the same.
Wonderful.
Regardless.
Very useful, thank you.
Thank you.
Sally, thank you very much for that. My only rider at the end, you did start at the outset with a caveat. Could we make you look 15 years younger and a stone lighter?
Yeah.
I'm sure we don't actually need to do so, but we will do our best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Lovely to talk to you.
And that completes this coffee break for this particular session. Watch this space for further sessions in due course. Goodbye, everyone.